Okay, topic 1.8, multiplication. We're going to identify the parts of a multiplication problem today. We're going to learn something called the associative property of multiplication. Don't worry, you don't need to memorize that. We're going to multiply single-digit numbers, and we're going to use shortcuts for numbers ending in 0. So let's get started. Multiplying is really just fast adding because we're taking identical numbers and we're quickly adding them together. So some examples are Anita has eaten 65 fruit-flavored candies. She reads the package and sees that each candy contains 4 calories. Well, okay, now 65, Anita, that seems like a lot, but she's going to write 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 65 times? I don't think so. Instead, she can just multiply 65 times 4, and then she'll know how many calories she's just consumed. So do you ever need to do repeated addition like this? This is something we do all the time, actually. When we buy a bunch of identical things, even if we buy a couple of identical things, we may be doing quick multiplication. There is some key vocabulary for this lesson, the most important ones being the first one and the last one here. Factors are numbers that you multiply together to get an answer. Okay, so 7 and 4 are factors of 28. 7 times 4 makes 28. We have multiplicand, which is the first number in a multiplication equation, and then the multiplier, which is the second number. I hardly ever use the word multiplicand, but it's just for your interest. Multiplier, you'll probably hear me using a lot more. And then product is the result of multiplication. So 28 is the product of 7 and 4. So that word can help you a lot when it comes to multiplying word problems. So if we look at what we've learned so far, we've learned that multiplication is repeated addition. 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8 really means we're adding 8 4 times. So instead of doing all of that, we're going to take the two factors. We're going to multiply 4 times 8 or 8 times 4, and that gives us a product of 32. If we want to estimate when we are multiplying, what we're going to do is round each number to the last digit on the left. So we're going to use front-end rounding, and then we'll multiply the rounded numbers. And that will allow us to see an approximation of what answer we should be getting when we multiply the actual numbers. Before we begin the do together section, if your multiplication facts are weak, you can be doing a number of things to help yourself each day. Flashcards from the dollar store, they're really effective if you're working on them daily. There's flashcard websites, and I'll send out an email with some websites where you can be doing online kind of flashcards. Even writing out daily some of the multiplication facts that you struggle with. All of these strategies, if you're doing regular continued practice, you will improve your skills at multiplying in your head more quickly. So for number 1, we're going to multiply 243 times 4. They've done the estimating for us. So they've shown us that when we round 243, it's going to round to 200. And the 4, we're going to leave it as it is because that would round down to 0. So we're going to now go ahead and multiply 200 times 4. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 0 again is also 0. And then 4 times 2 is 8. So we'll be looking at a number close to 800. Now we go ahead and do the actual. 4 times 3 is 12. We carry the 1. 4 times 4 is 16. Plus 1 is 17. Carry the 1. 4 times 2 is 8. Plus 1 is 9. So we do get a number that is significantly higher than 800, but not so outrageously higher. So you may find, okay, why is it so much higher? When we're multiplying, we're really stretching out those numbers. So if you had something like, 12,000 and 800, then you would know something's really wrong. But if you're within a couple hundred for small numbers and a few hundred for larger numbers, then you can be confident that you've done the correct multiplication. Number 2, they've also done the estimating for us. Notice that 62 is rounding to 60 and 38 is rounding up to 40. So we're going to go ahead and multiply. What we can do here when we have a 0 is we can actually just bring that down and we can go right over to the 4. What that does is it's a shortcut method, because if we were going to multiply 0 times 0 and 0 times 6, our first whole row would become 0 anyways. So we're going to bring down this 0 and we're going to go right to the tens place and start to multiply now. 4 times 0 is 0 and 4 times 6 is 24. So we're going to end up with 2,400 for our estimate. For our actual, we're going to go ahead and multiply. We're going to have 2 rows. We can't use that shortcut method. So 6 times 2 is 12. Carry the 1. 6 times 6 is 36. Plus 1 is 37. For our second row, we need to hold the place of the ones place. Because we're going to be moving over to this 3, we need to have a 0 in our second row so that we can move ourselves in line with the 3 for our second row. So we're going to multiply 3 times 2, which is 6, and then 3 times 6, which is 18. Now we're ready to add our 2 rows together. 2 plus 0 is 2. 7 plus 6 is 13. We're going to carry the 1. 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 8 is 12. Carry the 1 again. 1 plus 1 is 2. So we can see that our answers are quite close to one another. So we're confident that we've done this correctly. Number 3, 267 rounds up to 300, and 93 rounds down to 90. We're going to use the same strategy as number 2. Notice that I have a 0 in my multiplier. I'm going to bring that 0 down. That holds my ones place. Go right to the 9. I'm going to multiply 9 times 0 is 0. 9 times 0 is 0. 9 times 3 is 27. 27,000 for my estimate. For my actual, I'm going to go to my ones place. 3 times 7 is 21. Carry my 2. 3 times 6 is 18. Plus 2 is 20. Carry my 2 again. 3 times 2 is 6. Plus 2 is 8. My first row is done. To get to the 9, I need to move over. So I'm going to place a 0 to hold my ones place. Move to my 9 and start the process all over. 9 times 7 is 63. I'm going to carry the 6. 9 times 6 is 54. Plus 6 is 60. Carry my 6 up here. I'm going to scratch these out. 9 times 2 is 18. Plus 6 is 24. I'm ready to add now. 1 plus 0 is 1. 0 plus 3 is 3. 8 plus 0 is 8, and I've got to bring my 4 and my 2. 24,831 is close enough to 27,000. I can be confident I've done this correctly. For number 4, this time they haven't given us the estimate, so we're going to go ahead and do that now. We're going to round, front end rounding. The 2 is not going to push the 7 up, so we're going to have 724 become 700. And for the 50, it's going to stay as is, because note the 0 is not going to push the 5, and we have nothing to change. So we're going to have 700 times 50. So I'm going to solve my estimated answer first. So I'm going to go ahead and drop down that 0. That's my shortcut method. That gets me through my first row. And I go straight to the 5 now. I'm lined with the tens place. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 7 is 35. So I'm going to be looking at an answer close to 35,000 here. I can go ahead and write my actual numbers down. Here I can use my shortcut method again because I have 50. So that saves me some time. So I'm going to bring down the 0 and go right over to the 5. 5 times 4 is 20. Carry my 2 up. 5 times 2 is 10. Plus 2 is 12. Carry my 1 up. 5 times 7 is 35. Plus 1 is 36. 36,200 and 35,000. For number 5, notice that these numbers are already rounded. So the 3,000, there may be a bit of a weirdness here because I just had to pause the video, but we've got 3,000 here. Notice that everything is already rounded. And then 20 here, same goes. So there's nothing here to change, but we can certainly go ahead and do our estimate. So I'm going to bring down this 0, and then I go ahead and multiply 2 times 0, 2 times 0, 2 times 0. It's a lot of zeros. And then 2 times 3, which is 6. So I'm going to go from the back, ones, tens, hundreds, to get my little comma in there so I can read this number better, 60,000. Well, my actual, what else is there to do? It's the exact same thing. So my actual is going to be the same. Our last one, number 6, is called chain multiplication. We have 4 times 5 times 2. When you have multiplication of a chain with these small numbers, you don't need to round these at all, because 4 would round to 0, 5 would round to 10, and 2 would round to 0. So what we would get is 0 times any number, which would equal 0. So with small digits and chain multiplication with small digits, we're just going to go ahead and multiply the chain. So you can multiply the chain in any order at all. 4 times 5 is 20, and then 20 times 2 is 40. Alternatively, you could go 2 times 5 is 10, 10 times 4 is 40, or you could multiply 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 5 is 40. So multiplication, like adding, it doesn't matter the order. You can move around through the chain to group numbers the way that you best see them. For the exercise below, sometimes you need to estimate. A lot of the times you do, but there are times where you don't. So keep that in mind when you have small digits, and when you're working a chain with small digits, you won't need to complete the estimated column.